So one thing you said earlier that I wanted to circle back to was you said you guys weren't super religious, and that was part of the reason why you went to marriage counseling or whatever, couples counseling. But the religious part I wanted to circle back to because, that's one of the things I talk about on here is like what your not necessarily religion, but what your beliefs are.
Hmm.
You know, I don't necessarily like the word God, but I think it's a good word to just kind of be a jumping off point as far as a good discussion. Like, what, as a philosophy major, what do you think about God? How do you picture God? Um, what is
So
your
it's
God?
actually
Who is your God, etc.?
so it's actually really interesting. So being that I took a lot of ethics courses and you know cultural courses, the word God actually stems from ancient civilizations, which means the sun. So if you really want to get into what does God mean to me, I mean, when I think of the word God, and there's two things, right? I think of like that it's hard for me because I went way on the other end for a while where I was like, I still think you could call me agnostic today because I do believe there is a spiritual. mm, so it's hard. Like I'm torn, right? So there's part of me that believes, there might be a higher, there could be a higher being at play or a higher spiritual, whatever, chemical hole in the atmosphere, I guess. But I don't really actually believe. I I think that people say everything happens for a reason to make themselves feel better. But I do actually think that things do happen to people for certain reasons, if that makes sense, which it doesn't. It's like an oxymoron. Like, so when you talk about religion and God, I think it's important for a lot of people to go to God and have religion because for children, I think it's important. I think it's a good way to teach children morality and ethics and don't lie, don't steal, don't covet thy neighbor, whatever.
But see, that's the catch 22 right there. Because if you're telling
Right.
them not to lie, but you don't really believe in God,
Well, right. And
but you're
so
using
so
God
it's
as your moral standard, like that's kind of
correct. And so
deceptive.
like I don't, but you see it too, right? You see a lot of religious people that'll do really terrible things. It's like
No,
in the Catholic Church, right? And I'm not hating on anyone, but you can
no,
go
I
sin
am. Fuck the
and,
Catholic Church.
and do a shit ton of terrible fucked up shit and then just go ask for forgiveness and it's all okay. Like
Yeah, no, I mean, I've got a
you're
lot of
supposed to listen.
a lot of Christianity I have a soft spot for, and I'm not
Yeah, but
anti-Christian,
then
but
hold on,
fuck
here's what's
the
interesting.
Catholic Church.
Okay,
That's
but
that's
so
there's a difference between the Catholic Church and Christianity as a whole.
okay, but okay, so you remember Zeitgeist, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so Zeitgeist, in my opinion, and I've listened to one of your podcasts. You mentioned a couple other newer, really good, I guess, documentaries that I wanted to watch, and I meant to write them down, and I didn't. So if you
Kymatica
remember,
is the main one.
yeah, so text them to me, because I won't remember. Like I said, you could tell me, I won't remember. I don't have a pen, and you're on my little phone thing here, so I can't type it on my phone. But so when I showed this movie, I showed Zeitgeist to a very religious person in college. We were still in college. And I sat him down and I was like, you got to watch it. Because they were like, Brittany, I can't believe you're not super religious. And they were very Christian. And I said, no, you got to watch it, man. Just watch it. And I watched this person I watched them have like a mental breakdown during this movie because they couldn't believe the similarities that were pulled for
Yeah.
Christianity from.
But see, it's that same shit that kind of get that allows me to have a soft spot for Christianity because I think
But it goes back to the sun. Like people worship the
no,
sun
I
because
agree. I agree.
it rose,
It's a
it
tradition.
fell.
It's one of many solar traditions.
I just like I
I do consider myself not necessarily religious, but definitely spiritual. And I definitely believe, like, for me, the way I would describe it is like God, since God was the way I proposed the question to you, to me, like God is nothing but a word that symbolizes something that's beyond words.
Yeah, that's a good way to think about
Light,
it.
I think light is a really good way. I mean, I said this on last night's podcast with David. It's like it's really interesting how we don't have to, but because of the way that we communicate is with sound, we
Did you do
use
your Did you do your podcast with Dave from college?
no, David, no, different David.
Different David?
Um,
Okay.
different David. But yeah, um, we have to use sounds to describe light.
Well, it's like Waking Life. You're the one that I think that
Yeah,
actually showed me Waking Life. I still
yeah.
watch Waking Life. I still show people Waking Life.
It's fucking incredible movie, dude.
There's like, there's a script for that, right? Like I'm sure you know exactly what scene I'm talking about, but it's like we say a word, and then there's a
It goes through the air. The two
yeah,
ladies talking, and she's like,
yes,
"Yeah,
it's the two ladies, but it's like
this vibrations traveling through the air
right,
hits your eardrum. You hear the word love, then you have all of these experiences from your life. So
right,
when it hits your eardrum, you have a totally different understanding of or conception of that word, whether it's love or any other God or any other word.
right, or
And
whatever word it is,
that's exactly the point I'm making, Brittany. That's
right,
perfect. If anybody's seen Waking Life, that is exactly what I'm talking about. Because to me, God is love, is energy, is nature, is consciousness, is Yahweh, Krishna, what like all of those are words to describe the same force that opens a flower, that allows you to think, that allows you to speak, that allows you to move, that brings the sun up, that spins the earth, but unless you're a flat earther. But any of it, what literally makes the world move or life move, however
right.
you perceive that, that to me is reality. I think is actually almost a closer word to describe what I think of when I think of God. Reality itself is God. I think the worst part of Christianity or any religion is the externalization of God. God is
Right.
in you and outside of you, but not just outside of you and not just outside of everything that you see. It's not like
But it's not some
something
weird guy
outside of
sitting on a
this.
cloud
It's not
making
outside of this realm. It's not outside of
right,
this
like
dimension.
pointing
It
and
is
being
this
like,
dimension and every
no,
other
it's
dimension.
time, it's time for you to die. Let's come up with a way for you to
Yeah.
die today. Like, no, that's not it. That's not
Yeah.
it's just not it. But
And the reason I have a soft spot for Christianity is because the history of Christianity is such that um at least from I might be wrong, but from what I've read and what I've gleaned from my studies into early Christianity, it seems that it originated as a countercultural, very grassroots, and Gnosticism is really what the original Christianity is. And
wasn't
what
it in
Christian
response to Catholicism?
No, Catholicism developed that later, and that was kind of what ruined Christianity, in my opinion. Before it got,
Because I did take a religious ethics class, but that was like 15 years ago. So
yeah, I think the downfall of Christianity is when Emperor Constantine made it the official religion of the Roman Empire.
yeah, that makes sense.
Because then it got politicized, and it became more political than
Well, I feel like
spiritual at that
anything
point.
that gets politicized
It's already lost its way,
goes to
right?
shit.
Yep.